lush delta, and there they founded the glorious city of Keshanar. Here, Ramimnon made a deal with the gods, offering allegiance in exchange for divine magic and immortality for the pharaohs of Keshanar. Each pharaoh is only chosen by the Phoenix, from among the most worthy Keshite citizens. This is the Phoenix Covenant. Powerful forces preserve it, but some seek its destruction. Set is in timeout in Duat, the underworld, as punishment for killing his brother Osiris. He is tasked with keeping the forces of Apep at bay, but Set tires of his confinement. And his agents are always at work. By the way, I'm Mop Hotep, a humble sanitation dusker here in Keshanar. Somehow my soul got trapped in my skeletal body. Mind you, keeping Keshanar clean is a pretty cool job. I mean, look at the place! Flying obelisk, act out the lazy dreams of dead pharaohs, the temples, the monuments, the bathhouses, oh, and the highly efficient sewer system. Just dump your refuse in the nearest troll hole, and the sewer creatures of the downtown will consume it for you. This place rocks! The scribes of Orthane have provided you with new spells, monsters, species, subclasses, and magic items to support your quest. The architects and builders of Taha created the entire city of Keshanar in 3D, in the Unreal Engine, 25 million square feet of city, with hundreds of unique buildings for players to explore out of game, and for DMs to show the players where they are in the city. Need a last-minute battle map? Just push a button to strip off the top of the buildings and export a VTT-ready image, complete with the grid. You can even adjust the lighting. Come to the Kingdom of Keshanar, where ancient Egypt comes alive. The veil between life and death is thin in Keshanar. Everyone knows that eventually they will have to face the judgment of Anubis. That's a new one. He better make his sleight of hand roll. Ramimnon and his people escaped the lightning-blasted Catharan Desert and its many dangers. They came to a lush delta, and there they founded the glorious city of Keshanar. Here, Ramimnon made a deal with the gods, offering allegiance in exchange for divine magic and immortality for the pharaohs of Keshanar. Each pharaoh is only chosen by the Phoenix, from among the most worthy Keshite citizens. This is the Phoenix Covenant. Powerful forces preserve it, but some seek its destruction. Set is in timeout in Duat, the underworld, as punishment for killing his brother Osiris. He is tasked with keeping the forces of Apep at bay, but Set tires of his confinement. And his agents are always at work. By the way, I'm Mop Hotep, a humble sanitation dusker here in Keshanar. Somehow my soul got trapped in my skeletal body. Mind you, keeping Keshanar clean is a pretty cool job. I mean, look at the place! Flying obelisk, act out the lazy dreams of dead pharaohs, the temples, the monuments, the bathhouses, oh, and the highly efficient sewer system. Just dump your refuse in the nearest troll hole, and the sewer creatures of the downtown will consume it for you. This place rocks! The scribes of Orthane have provided you with new spells, monsters, species, subclasses, and magic items to support your quest. The architects and builders of Taha created the entire city of Keshanar in 3D, in the Unreal Engine, 25 million square feet of city, with hundreds of unique buildings for players to explore out of game, and for DMs to show the players where they are in the city. Need a last-minute battle map? Just push a button to strip off the top of the buildings and export a VTT-ready image, complete with the grid. You can even adjust the lighting. Come to the Kingdom of Keshanar, where ancient Egypt comes alive. The veil between life and death is thin in Keshanar. Everyone knows that eventually they will have to face the judgment of Anubis. That's a new one. He better make his sleight of hand roll. Ra-Memnon and his people escaped the lightning-blasted Catharan desert and its many dangers. They came to a lush delta, and there they founded the glorious city of Keshanar. Here, Ra-Memnon made a deal with the gods, offering allegiance in exchange for divine magic and immortality for the pharaohs of Keshanar. Each pharaoh is only chosen by the Phoenix from among the most worthy Keshite citizens. This is the Phoenix Covenant. Powerful forces preserve it, but some seek its destruction. Set is in timeout in Duat, the underworld, as punishment for killing his brother Osiris. He is tasked with keeping the forces of Apep at bay, but Set tires of his confinement. And his agents are always at work. By the way, I'm Mop Hotep, a humble sanitation desker here in Keshanar. Somehow my soul got trapped in my skeletal body. Mind you, keeping Keshanar clean is a pretty cool job. I mean, look at the place! Flying obelisk act out the lazy dreams of dead pharaohs, the temples, the monuments, the bathhouses. Oh, and the highly efficient sewer system. Just dump your refuse in the nearest troll hole, and the sewer creatures of the downtown will consume it for you. This place rocks! The scribes of Orthane have provided you with new spells, monsters, species, subclasses, and magic items to support your quest. The architects and builders of Taha created the entire city of Keshanar in 3D in the Unreal Engine. 25 million square feet of city, with hundreds of unique buildings for players to explore out of game, and for DMs to show the players where they are in the city. Need a last-minute battle map? Just push a button to strip off the top of the buildings and export a VTT-ready image, complete with the grid. You can even adjust the lighting. Come to the Kingdom of Keshanar, where ancient Egypt comes alive. The veil between life and death is thin in Keshanar. Everyone knows that eventually they will have to face the judgment of Anubis. That's a new one. He better make his sleight of hand roll. Ra-Memnon and his people escaped the lightning-blasted Catharan desert and its many dangers. They came to a lush delta, and there they founded the glorious city of Keshanar. Here, Ra-Memnon made a deal with the gods, offering allegiance in exchange for divine magic and immortality for the pharaohs of Keshanar. Each pharaoh is only chosen by the Phoenix from among the most worthy Keshite citizens. This is the Phoenix Covenant. Powerful forces preserve it, but some seek its destruction. Set is in timeout in Duat, the underworld, as punishment for killing his brother Osiris. He is tasked with keeping the forces of Apep at bay, but Set tires of his confinement. And his agents are always at work. By the way, I'm Mop Hotep, a humble sanitation desker here in Keshanar. Somehow my soul got trapped in my skeletal body. Mind you, keeping Keshanar clean is a pretty cool job. I mean, look at the place! Flying obelisk act out the lazy dreams of dead pharaohs, the temples, the monuments, the bathhouses. Oh, and the highly efficient sewer system. Just dump your refuse in the nearest troll hole, and the sewer creatures of the downtown will consume it for you. This place rocks! The scribes of Orthane have provided you with new spells, monsters, species, subclasses, and magic items to support your quest. The architects and builders of Taha created the entire city of Keshanar in 3D in the Unreal Engine. 25 million square feet of city, with hundreds of unique buildings for players to explore out of game, and for DMs to show the players where they are in the city. Need a last-minute battle map? Just push a button to strip off the top of the buildings and export a VTT-ready image, complete with the grid. You can even adjust the lighting. Come to the Kingdom of Keshanar, where ancient Egypt comes alive. The veil between life and death is thin in Keshanar. Everyone knows that eventually they will have to face the judgment of Anubis. That's a new one. He better make his sleight of hand roll. Ra-Memnon and his people escaped the lightning-blasted Catharan desert and its many dangers. They came to a lush delta, and there they founded the glorious city of Keshanar. Here, Ra-Memnon made a deal with the gods, offering allegiance in exchange for divine magic and immortality for the pharaohs of Keshanar. Each pharaoh is only chosen by the Phoenix, from among the most worthy Keshite citizens. This is the Phoenix Covenant. Powerful forces preserve it, but some seek its destruction. Set is in timeout in Duat, the underworld, as punishment for killing his brother Osiris. He is tasked with keeping the forces of Apep at bay, but Set tires of his confinement. And his agents are always at work. By the way, I'm Mop Hotep, a humble sanitation desker here in Keshanar. Somehow my soul got trapped in my skeletal body. Mind you, keeping Keshanar clean is a pretty cool job. I mean, look at the place! Flying obelisk, act out the lazy dreams of dead pharaohs, the temples, the monuments, the bathhouses, oh, and the highly efficient sewer system. Just dump your refuse in the nearest troll hole, and the sewer creatures of the downtown will consume it for you. This place rocks! The scribes of Orthane have provided you with new spells, monsters, species, subclasses, and magic items to support your quest. The architects and builders of Taha created the entire city of Keshanar in 3D in the Unreal Engine. 25 million square feet of city, with hundreds of unique buildings for players to explore out of game, and for DMs to show the players where they are in the city. Need a last-minute battle map? Just push a button to strip off the top of the buildings and export a VTT-ready image, complete with the grid. You can even adjust the lighting. Come to the Kingdom of Keshanar, where ancient Egypt comes alive. The veil between life and death is thin in Keshanar. Everyone knows that eventually they will have to face the judgment of Anubis. That's a new one. He better make his sleight of hand roll. Ra-Memnon and his people escaped the lightning-blasted Catharan desert and its many dangers. They came to a lush delta, and there they founded the glorious city of Keshanar. Here, Ra-Memnon made a deal with the gods, offering allegiance in exchange for divine magic and immortality for the pharaohs of Keshanar. Each pharaoh is only chosen by the Phoenix, from among the most worthy Keshite citizens. This is the Phoenix Covenant. Powerful forces preserve it, but some seek its destruction. Set is in timeout in Duat, the underworld, as punishment for killing his brother Osiris. He is tasked with keeping the forces of Apep at bay, but Set tires of his confinement. And his agents are always at work. By the way, I'm Mop Hotep, a humble sanitation desker here in Keshanar. Somehow my soul got trapped in my skeletal body. Mind you, keeping Keshanar clean is a pretty cool job. I mean, look at the place! Flying obelisk, act out the lazy dreams of dead pharaohs, the temples, the monuments, the bathhouses, oh, and the highly efficient sewer system. Just dump your refuse in the nearest troll hole, and the sewer creatures of the downtown will consume it for you. This place rocks! The scribes of Orthane have provided you with new spells, monsters, species, subclasses, and magic items to support your quest. The architects and builders of Tar created the entire city of Keshanar in 3D in the Unreal Engine. 25 million square feet of city, with hundreds of unique buildings for players to explore out of game, and for DMs to show the players where they are in the city. Need a last-minute battle map? Just push a button to strip off the top of the buildings and export a VTT-ready image, complete with the grid. You can even adjust the lighting. Come to the Kingdom of Keshanar, where ancient Egypt comes alive. The veil between life and death is thin in Keshanar. Everyone knows that eventually they will have to face the judgment of Anubis. That's a new one. He better make his sleight of hand roll. Ra-Memnon and his people escaped the lightning-blasted Catharan Desert and its many dangers. They came to a lush delta, and there they founded the glorious city of Keshanar. Here, Ra-Memnon made a deal with the gods, offering allegiance in exchange for divine magic and immortality for the pharaohs of Keshanar. Each pharaoh is only chosen by the Phoenix, from among the most worthy Keshite citizens. This is the Phoenix Covenant. Powerful forces preserve it, but some seek its destruction. Sed is in timeout in Duat, the underworld, as punishment for killing his brother Osiris. He is tasked with keeping the forces of Apep at bay, but Sed tires of his confinement. And his agents are always at work. By the way, I'm Mop Hotep, a humble sanitation dusker here in Keshanar. Somehow my soul got trapped in my skeletal body. Mind you, keeping Keshanar clean is a pretty cool job. I mean, look at the place. Flying obelisk act out the lazy dreams of dead pharaohs, the temples, the monuments, the bathhouses. Oh, and the highly efficient sewer system. Just dump your refuse in the nearest troll hole, and the sewer creatures of the downtown will consume it for you. This place rocks! The scribes of Orthane have provided you with new spells, monsters, species, subclasses, and magic items to support your quest. The architects and builders of Tar created the entire city of Keshanar in 3D in the Unreal Engine. 25 million square feet of city, with hundreds of unique buildings for players to explore out of game, and for DMs to show the players where they are in the city. Need a last-minute battle map? Just push a button to strip off the top of the buildings and export a VTT-ready image, complete with the grid. You can even adjust the lighting. Come to the Kingdom of Keshanar, where ancient Egypt comes alive. The veil between life and death is thin in Keshanar. Everyone knows that eventually they will have...
Hey everybody, I'm Dave Haddon. Thanks for joining our live stream today here at Orthane Productions in our studio, which also happens to be in my basement. And I am joined by my good friend Connor Self, who runs D8 Summit Charities, and we'll be diving into some interesting topics that revolve around some of the social good that tabletop role-playing games are doing, and also and how organizations like Connors and D8 is kind of leading the charge there and really doing a lot to foster social awareness about the positive benefits that TTRPG and role playing in general can have on all kinds of aspects of our society. And Connor's an expert on this, and I look forward to discussing that with him. Connor, thank you, and welcome to our live stream.
Thank you, David. It's a pleasure to be here with you, and a pleasure to be here with all the watchers out there in the Etherverse.
Absolutely. So yeah, everybody tuning in through the astral plane, right? Would you tell us a little bit about your background and what led you to find this convergence between your passions for like helping and marginalized communities and people in general, and doing so much social good with your passion for role playing? I think that's one of the things that I find most interesting is how you manage to combine those two things in such an effective way. So, tell us a little bit the TLDR and your story about how that came about.
Okay. Well, so hello everybody. Again, my name is Connor. And I sort of fell into it on accident.
Go ahead. No, you're good.
Okay. I sort of fell into it on accident. I've been a longtime gamer. A lot of us, we've played since, we were kids, and I started playing games with my buddies in middle school, which was way more years ago than I'd like to admit at this point. But I've earned every gray in this gray beard, and so we'd sit and we'd tell these stories and have a good time, and it became a passion for me, something I was always interested in. Tales of heroism and daring do and fighting against overwhelming odds. Creating a story that centers on acts of heroism, big or small, that you get to engage in a fictional space. And so it was really neat. It was a fun take on other forms of entertainment where you would passively watch other people be heroes. Turn on a TV show or watch a movie. That's kind of what happens. I was like, no, I can actually pretend that I'm the hero. This is really cool. So fast forward to several years later, I've become a therapist, and I meet some fellow locals in the community where I moved to, who were very interested in board games and RPGs, and so we formed a community where we could play those games together. And then it's like we would love to start our own convention, one that does all these great things that all these other conventions are doing. Like you got events like Gamehole Con, where you just got hardcore, just great events. You've got more intimate events, smaller conventions. You've got conventions where the fun of the shared table celebrated, like at GaryCon, and we're like, well, what are we going to do? Let's pull all the pieces together and we'll make this convention the way that we liked it. Go forward a couple months as we're doing all this planning. Running a convention's a lot of hard work, and there isn't a lot of money in it. A lot of people might seem to believe there is, but there truly isn't. And it's something you do because you want to do it. But there was a tornado that rocked the small town of Washington, Illinois, some years back, and we approached I approached the other folks in charge of this convention we're putting together. I'm like, hey, what about we just take any money that we make and give it to that effort, right?
Yeah.
Like that, and they're like, yeah. We took a vote on it. We agreed. And that was our first gaming fundraiser. The first D8 Summit was a fundraiser to help tornado victims, and it grew from there. In 2019, we were incorporated fully into a 501c3 charitable organization, and since then, we've continued to keep that tradition of doing forward-facing gamer events and taking any money that we might be able to raise at those events and putting them into quality local efforts. There's a lot of good to be done for big charities, but big charities have massive budgets, lots of overhead often, and we wanted to take that money and give it instead to the organizations with the feet on the ground who are doing a lot of the heavy lifting with like really small budgets, because those dollars, whatever we're able to raise, can go further in a lot of ways with those organizations. So we've raised money for homeless shelters, food banks, suicide prevention, youth groups. But we've done a lot of wonderful things. Last year we raised money to have vital safety upgrades and a game room put in a senior center.
Hmm.
Um,
I remember that. Yeah.
yeah, these are the sorts of things that we try to do because we want that money to go to places in ways that can make the most good. And and so we've also expanded that mission to getting out there and giving back to the gamer community as well by offering professional quality education and conversations at conventions around the country. And we've been able to do that um, everywhere from the East Coast to the West Coast to the South Coast to the Central Coast. We've been everywhere in the last couple of years talking about important things. Everything from how do we teach kids to play games or what can kids get out of it, to how do you support the mental health of the players at your table, to what can you do to build a bigger table where everybody feels included, to what can you learn from streamers on how to be a better player. Like we've done panels on just about anything that we feel that there where there's good resources, there's good information out there to make everybody's games better, make everybody's lives better in
Like
our gaming spaces too.
it seems like your social investment thesis is evolving, over time, which is great because you're responding to the needs of the community and thinking more about how those things are trending. One of the things that I hear you talking about is healing tables, which I think is such a cool concept, because it again also it pulls out the positive social benefits of role playing in general.
Yeah.
Yeah, could you speak a little bit about the healing table concept and how you've seen that evolve? And just for a side note, the way that Connor and I met, we were introduced by our mutual colleague Emil,
Yeah.
and so I was invited to serve on one of his to be on one of his panels at GaryCon about the positive mental health impacts of role playing games, which is an area that is I'm actually kind of in my wheelhouse a little bit because my last company I managed mental health clinical trials. So I managed over 200 phase 3 clinical trials. So the big one when we're really putting it into human studies and testing all and schizophrenia and lots and just name it like bipolar disorder, lots of mental health disorders. And so the idea that there's an expanding clinical body of evidence that role-playing games can have a really positive impact on a lot of mental health and mental wellness, not just mental health illnesses, but also mental wellness for all of us is huge, for the industry, right? Massive.
Yeah.
And you really seem to be kind of pushing that message out.
Well, thank you. And thank you again for speaking on that panel. That was honestly one of the most like when I reflect on panels that just seem to go very well. That also is one of the highest caliber panels I think we ever offered. Was a couple years ago at GaryCon, and I want to thank you for being on it because you contributed a significant amount of expertise. And I also want to call out again and second Jamil and just his awesomeness in the space for establishing that meeting, but also what he continues to do in our spaces. There are we are aware there's a lot of evidence in the body of psychological research on the importance of play in human development, and how play is central to gaining skills and acquiring knowledge in the world. We are hardwired from an early age to play, and if you allow children to play naturally, you can see this very well on display in Montessori schools, but also in schools that use a little bit more of a loose curriculum. If you allow kids to play inside of a space, they will acquire the skills they need to navigate that space. Because we sort of self-seek that sort of knowledge. And so we're wired to play. We're wired to learn through enjoyment from early ages. But we never really lose that passion unless we force ourselves to lose it. We play throughout the lifespan. It's one of the most beautiful things about our shared humanity is continuing to play, and also through play continuing to learn about ourselves, learn about others, learn about the world through that play.
No, I loved your story about in the beginning about your big inspiration for this is just that with role-playing games, you can be the hero of your own stories, especially as a child, right?
Yeah.
Children are rarely the heroes, or youth. I think a lot of us learned kind of like in our teens. So that's when I started playing, and
Mhm.
it was the most it was a revelation for me.
Yeah.
Finding I was going to a school and I was going to a boys' boarding school that's a lot like Hogwarts. In fact, their eating hall is identical to the one in the Hogwarts movies because it's modeled after like one of the ones in England, and it
Uh-huh.
was a style boarding school. So and like we played cricket, which is Quidditch, and we had like we wore the suit and the robes and everything. The only thing we didn't have is the monsters and the magic. So then when I discovered Dungeons and Dragons in that school, it's like it's complete. Now we have the whole thing. And
Yeah.
it was hit me like a ton of bricks. Just that that you can have this, you can escape your own reality, but then also bring so much back into it from
You
those
can.
experiences.
You can. I remember having a conversation with my mom at one point in my life, and something really difficult had happened, and we were talking about the choices that we had to make to get through that situation. I remember I just looked at her and I said, I spent years of my life pretending to be a hero, and you can't pretend to be a hero that long without learning how to actually be one in real life too.
Wow.
And and she's like, yeah. And she stopped for a second, and then we just sort of we sat in the silence, and then we gave each other a big hug. It was a really neat moment for me in my own reflection about what games had offered to me, and now how I'm able to use them in my therapeutic setting. Uh, with teaching some of those important lessons to the kids that I work with. That's only like one part of the mental health benefits, though, is acquiring skills. And there's the second piece of it, which is an increasing body of research that shows that the connections that you build with other people as you're playing these games, so it's not just what you're learning, but the connections you build with other people have an insulating effect against a lot of negative health impacts, particularly as you age. And so continuing to play throughout the lifespan. Um, Anything as big as RPGs or as small as card games with others staves off dementia, um,
Wow.
insulates against other forms of mental illness. Um, it's uh,
Team
it's
building.
yeah, it's pretty impressive that the health impacts that you can get from playing games. And I mean, a lot of the games that we play, they're not very physical. I'm a big fan of finding ways to add physicality into our game spaces, our tabletop games. But even without the physicality, it presents very real physical health benefits. And so um, I can't speak highly enough about the importance of continuing our hobby, continuing to create new stories and get people engaged and passionate. Products that I'm hearing about, seeing. Meeting teams of passionate creators like the team at Keshanar, who are putting these ideas into motion, getting these things out there in a way that brings people in and allows them to learn, share stories with other people, and perhaps insulate themselves against some of the worst aspects of human aging.
And it's incredible. I think a lot of us are coming back to it as adults, right? Maybe took a little break in the middle there, and we're coming back to it as adults with like a whole, lifetime of or partial lifetime of professional experience to kind of bring to bear and look at this childhood hobby through that lens now.
Yeah.
And and that's it's incredible the contributions that we're able to make in terms of that process. So one of the things I wanted to talk to you about in particular, so yeah, we're develop here at Orthane, like we're developing Keshanar, which is this ancient Egypt themed um, setting and campaign world that I've been working on for a couple of decades now, and really hard, like with full intent to publish for the last 4 years, like actually commissioning art and
Mhm.
writing, hundreds and hundreds of pages of stuff, and we're getting pretty close to finishing up the setting book and what have you. But one of the things that the differences that we've made, one of the commitments that we've made is that we're going to kind of go beyond the aesthetics of ancient Egypt, sand mummies and pyramids, and really dive into ancient Egyptian canon and find ways that we can use that to enrich the story and the game world. And that's turned out to be a really smart move on our part because Lord has it, really enriched, what we're building in really stunning and amazing ways that I think people are going to really enjoy. There's a lot of Egyptophiles out there. But the thing that we've also encountered is, we in role playing and TTRPG in particular, we use other cultures as a source of inspiration for settings. Nordic cultures and Chinese cultures and Eastern cultures and what have you. So we're doing that with ancient Egypt, and so one of the things I had to really pay a lot of attention to is, are we respecting that culture appropriately? How do we deal with areas where we're representing things a little differently, and so that's why and so I wanted to that I actually think it's incredibly positive that I think it's pretty recent too in the industry that we're paying a lot of attention around the fact that this is an experiential learning and experiential process, right? So it's not like reading a novel, and so if you put things in there that are like violence and whatever, just different kinds of things that like adult kind of concepts, then people experience it differently when they're role playing it with others, than very differently than they would if they're just reading it in a novel. And so
Right.
pay a lot of attention to those things and be sensitive to those things so that we don't drive people away. Because at the end of the day, what we're trying to do is expand and make a bigger table, right? What are your thoughts around that? And then just kind of like the things that are starting to happen as trends in general in the industry to ensure that we're kind of protecting people's, everybody's, feelings and sensitivities around those issues.
So the as far as an individual, I'm a very strong proponent for engaging in these stories with sensitivity. Because for some of us, these are stories, right? But for other people, some of the things that exist as stories for us, they could be lived experience, right? And so, the caution thrown to, we have this really good idea. We really want to tell this awesome story. How can we do it in a way that also respects your lived experience? Like, we don't want to trivialize your life with our fun. That's kind of where a lot of that comes out. That's something that as an organization we speak a lot about at events. We try to talk about that as an idea. So the people of Egypt in particular, like if you look at the history of Egypt, there's a long history of the cultural and antiquated wealth of Egypt being stolen, like literally stolen, and sent to other places. If the pyramids could have been picked up and moved, they probably would have been put on an English boat.
They were picked up and moved, so
Yeah.
like the cladding stones of the pyramids were forcibly destroyed and used to build other kinds of buildings in the area. And so
Yeah.
it was cheaper to do that than to actually quarry new stones from Aswan, which is where the ancient Egyptians had to get it from, 200 miles to the south.
Yeah, it's one of those things where it's like, so you don't want to do that now. Like we don't want to add injustice to injustice, so approaching it from the position of there's a wealth of amazing things here. Not just the trappings of it, like you were talking about, but the actual meat of it, because the trappings are nothing more than symbolism, and beneath it is an entire culture, belief system, way of living. And instead of just we're going to release this very surface level look at it and make some money, when you take the emphasis and instead say we're going to really reflect as closely and as respectfully as we can in a fictional setting, we're going to try to reflect some of these things in a cool and interesting way that's thought provoking and shows respect, to to the ancient Egyptians who are all long gone, and the modern day Egyptians who are living a legacy from those who came before. That's one of the things where when we've talked about and I've seen what you've done to do that, bringing in experts, bringing on sensitivity readers that can look at things from a different lens than the creatives might be, and be like, hey, you know, the that shows that you're making every effort to maintain the coolness, the wow factor that you've had, but at the same time conveying respect for other people's actual real experience.
It makes
I have to say I really appreciate you brought on the team from the Word Refinery. I'm a little biased toward the Word Refinery, at seeing as I do work with them, but these are a team of well-trained professionals and a network of other folks in the gaming community who can do that, who can do that sensitively. Because again, I mean, the point behind these games, we obviously want people to have fun, and we don't want to take the fun out of it. And part of not taking the fun out of it means that if we put everything out there respectfully, then more people can enjoy it. There you go.
Yeah, and I'll be brutally honest and say that when I first sort of encountered this trend towards having sensitivity readings and that kind of thing, I was a little hesitant because I was worried, that it would take some of the fun out of the manuscript and the story that we were building, and it's actually turned out to be exactly the opposite, which is a pleasant surprise. So I would say that honestly, the setting and the campaign has gotten better as a result of engaging in that way, because it just forces us to look at things slightly different, and in no way, shape, or form has any of the things they brought up, which could be alarming or inflammatory or be perceived in the wrong way by people around the table, brought them up as things that we should reconsider. In every case, we found a way to make it actually better, a way to improve the story. We're kind of like falling back on old tropes, to a certain extent. And I'll give you another example. So we took the entire game design, not the entire, but elements of the game design team to Egypt in December. So I'd been to Egypt before, but I wanted to go back, kind of one big tour, like a big one, like see everything. Now that I'd been writing for, hard for 4 years on Keshanar, and so we had the only Egyptian Egyptologists are allowed to lead tours there for the most part, so you've got to have and they have an approved sort of curriculum that they go through, which is, it turns out, it's quite a bit different than there are some differences with Western Egyptologists. And so, and it's not like a PhD level. It's sort of like a graduate degree. It's not like necessarily a graduate degree level, but it's definitely a program they have to go through. They have to go through exams and what have you. And so I was at Abu Simbel, which is the temple you see with Ramses II's 4 statues of him sitting in the front.
Yes.
And there's 4 statues in the back, and I tell this story, and I need to remember what the other statues were. One, I think it's Ramses and his wife, and another one, maybe Osiris. And then and one of them is Ta, which our guide pronounced as Ptah. And who knows how they actually said it. And I asked him, I think his name is Adham. He says, yeah, then there's Ptah, who's the god of darkness. And I'm like, really? The god of darkness? Now, I'm no expert. All of my initial training in ancient Egyptian theology came from deities and demigods, okay?
Oh, okay, yeah. I got a copy of it right over there.
Exactly. It was good, but it has expanded significantly since then. But and I was like, that's interesting, because my understanding is, just from what I've read in my readings, and not to dispute what you're saying or disagree with you in any way, but is that God was was kind of the architect of the universe and the god of builders and that kind of thing. And he's like, I was like, why darkness? And he's like, why? He's like, well, that's interesting. I never heard that. And I said, why darkness? He said, because one time during the year, I think it's the solstice, one of the, it's spring solstice maybe, the light shines directly through the entrance to this temple, and then that beam of light hits each of these 4 statues at the back. Ramses first, because he's the most important, he's the pharaoh, and then it starts going over to the left, and then right before it gets to Ta, it ends, and so he's the one in darkness. I'm like, talk about a gameable thing.
Wow.
So the more we dig into this stuff, it's like, wow, that's super gameable. Like, we can totally find a way to add that into, and it adds this level of nitty gritty, I think it adds to the willing suspension of disbelief that you're experiencing when you play. When you can add all this nitty gritty stuff and like very experiential things into the setting for the DM to kind of pull out and use, to enhance the experience for his players or her players or their players.
And well, we play a game where the entire point is you take different perspectives, and that makes the game just so much more enjoyable. The same idea translates pretty well to projects too. Bring in those different perspectives. They're not going to make your project worse. They can only make it better, because you're going to start hearing and seeing things in different ways. It's going to get your gear spinning. You're going to step out of the comfortable ways of thinking and find new paths and chart new courses that you wouldn't have done otherwise. The projects that we've done work on in the past, from the Red City to the Spelljammer's Cookbook. These we had found a formula that it was not. We didn't find something new; it was already there. Bring on teams of very different people and let them riff off each other. You're going to get something way cooler. And so, like, you can take that that process of bringing in those consultants, and if you have that communication, it's going to make your product better. And choosing to do that, it makes me so much more excited to see your product out there. I also want to say real quick, and this is just a quick aside, I'm kind of keeping up with the chat, and speaker Jason mentioned a very personal story, and I just wanted to thank you for mentioning that. It definitely, when we talk about benefits of pretend play, there's some strong evidence that pretend play can be helpful with resolving trauma. So I'm happy that you're finding that in your life, and I hope you get as many benefits from that as possible. I always throw out there the idea that while these things can be helpful, just keep in mind that unless your RPG is ran therapeutically by a therapist or a trained mental health professional, it's just a game. It's not a substitute for actual counseling or therapy, but it can help support you. So by all means, keep going out there, Jason, and thank you for your service.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Jason. That's an amazing comment and amazing story, and we appreciate it. And actually, John Nelson has an interesting comment, which is a question which is there's going to be an interesting follow-on for you, Connor, from this. But he's asking if any of the deities for Keshanar are original, or are they all from either D&D lore and or Egyptian beliefs? And the answer is, and this is tricky because I don't want to give anything away for later, but I will say that not all of them are from ancient Egyptian lore. And we have a PhD Egyptologist, Dr. Jill Waller, who goes through she serves as like an oracle for us about she would call her our Jill Zetastone, right? She's an oracle for us to like, we can ask questions, and the whole writing team goes to her and is constantly picking her brain about things. And she does all of our hieroglyphs for all of the art so that they actually mean something. It's not just grabbing stuff randomly off the internet and sticking them on there, and actually we're putting Easter eggs and clues into the hieroglyphs. So, it's something that you can really pay attention to. So we have made a huge effort. We had to, first of all, trim down. There's 3,000 Egyptian deities or something like that, right? So we chose 33 for our starting gambit, and because we had to build the temples for them all in the Unreal Engine 3D world, and that was a big deal because we used architects to do it, right? So they had to design it, and then went to the 3D team, and then they had to build it in Blender and texture it and put it into Unreal and position it and everything. So we had to limit that, and also we don't want the book to be 3 inches thick when it goes out. No one will want to run it. And there are deities that are not Egyptian original deities. However, I will add the caveat that not everything is necessarily as it seems. There is deception. There's some there's don't take everything at face value. Sometimes conspiracies are real. And one of the really fascinating things about ancient Egyptian gods, by the way, is how they're not all there's a lot of balance. So, like as Jill says, if you give Sekhmet the power to cause pestilence and destruction, then she must therefore also have the power of healing. And so it's a concept of ma'at and cosmic balance. And so that is a constant theme that perpetuates itself all the way through Egyptian lore. And so the short answer is yes, there are. And the other interesting aspect of that is you're going to find out more about them and why they exist as you get more into the campaign. But what I wanted the interesting point about that for you, Connor, is that I found that as we went into this, unlike if we were doing like a Nordic campaign, it would be a little different because it's a very alive culture. It's very much in existence. There's lots of Nordic people from that culture and still actively practicing that religion. In the case of ancient Egypt, really it's gone, right, for the most part.
Right.
Not entirely, because even though most of the inhabitants of modern Egypt are from about 600 or 700 years ago from like Turkey and neighboring countries, and not necessarily they don't trace their genetic lineage all the way back to ancient Egyptians. But there are a lot of ways, especially I really found this out when I went there and started work with ancient Egyptian Egyptologists, that there are a lot of ways in which ancient Egyptian games and mannerisms and like foods and food preparation things that go all the way back that have persisted, and so we're able to pick those out. And then there also is a new class. I think there's a new group of individuals that are actually actively worshiping ancient Egyptian gods as their actual primary means of worship, and so that's something we have to take into account also as we kind of put all this out there.
Yeah, that's it. I find the history of it fascinating, even without having touched Keshanar. Even with my experience in gaming, my experience in gaming with themes that might have emerged from Egyptian mythology is very limited. I find the culture and history around the region so fascinating, and how it grew, developed, and flourished into one of the world's greatest civilizations. On a relatively narrow bank of a river. How it not only created its own culture, but it gave and took so much from other Mediterranean cultures around it. Like it wasn't a culture that existed necessarily just to itself. There was a lot of trade, not only in the religious elements that we're talking about there, because not all of the Egyptian gods actually started as Egyptian gods. They started as gods in other pantheons that were adopted through that interchange, that dialogue. But to think that even though much of the religion is gone as it's practiced, to think that means that everything else is gone, it's not, because religion is one element of culture, and
Right.
it's inextricably linked. And even if the religion changes, the culture still remains and still thrives in foods, ways of living, ways of speaking. And you might not know why you do these things. You just know you do them because that's how they've always been done, right?
Yeah, and it persists over time. Yeah, it's fascinating. Like one of the things here, as I reach over here for something. But this is something that I found out, which is really interesting, and so we decided to include it in our Kickstarter. But did you know that that the ancient Egyptians invented the D20? Right.
I did.
This is a replica of the one that we discovered, which is the first D20 ever discovered in a tomb 2,200 years ago, 200 AD. It has Ptolemaic Coptic Greek letters on it, and we added the Arabic numbers so we can actually so it's kind of more usable. You can roll it at your table, and the original is in the Mesopotamian Museum of Art. But the more I dove into all of this ancient Egyptian culture, lore, and art and architecture and what have you, the more I discovered that kind of all roads lead to Egypt. And so many things that we attribute to even other cultures, like, we call our calendar the Gregorian calendar, right? was the Egyptians that invented the 360-day year, 65-day year calendar, right? And that there, I can give you a list of 20 things that we generally attribute, don't realize actually trace all the way back to ancient Egypt, and they were building these things, these monumental structures, in incredibly interesting ways that have not fallen down, but for specific reasons because of how they built them. Like of the seven wonders of the world, there's only one standing, the Great Pyramid of Giza, right? But I mean, what could you do to knock it down?
Yeah, good luck with that. Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead, give it a shot. And it's the only one still standing. And it's just been really rewarding. So as you go through Keshanar, that's one of our objectives, from its kind of is to sneakily educate everybody about all this really fascinating stuff in ancient Egypt, only because it comes out naturally, not through expository text, but through experiential learning as you go through the city and experience all this stuff.
Absolutely. And if playing a game gets somebody interested in the culture, so that they maybe take a really shallow dive and read things on it, or maybe even do a deeper dive and actually take the time to immerse themselves in Egypt itself, it's still adding to their understanding of the world and other people and of themselves through play. It's that core idea that I was talking about earlier in human development throughout the lifespan. If you're having a great time with the game, awesome. That's great. Keep doing it. If it gets you interested in experiencing more in life, oh yeah, go there, do it. Right. It's one of the best things about this product.
So we have a couple of minutes left, and so I prepared this wrap-up question for you. I think that you might find interesting. If you had unlimited time and resources, what dream project would you want D8 Summit Charities to tackle next?
There are some great ideas out there, not by me. I'll throw it out there, but by some of the people I know out there. Who they've got dream ideas or things they want to do that I want to support wholeheartedly. I don't want to speak for people that aren't on this call, but I've spoken with some great people who want to highlight their own lives, their own experiences, their own cultures in RPGs more. There's a great project I can speak about from the Ward Refinery, which is bringing the history, culture of South America to its own gaming product. This is a dream project by a team of creatives, either currently they're from South America or their family roots are from South America. They want to put this forward. It's a product called Gaboa. I'm a huge fan of that. I'd like to see a lot more of that, where people get a chance to share and tell stories. But I will leave it at that because the big one that I'm thinking about is a project from somebody that you know well and work with. That would be, if I had a dream project that I could bring forward, the first one I would bring forward is that person's idea. And that's where I'm going to leave it, because like I said, that person is not here to speak to that amazing idea that really I'd like to see it actualized out there. But that's what I would do. I would take that money and I would turn it toward the ideas that other people have.
Wow, that's a great answer. Okay, so where do we follow what you're doing, and how do people get involved?
Okay, so you can follow our organization and what we're doing by you can look up D8 Summit Charities on Facebook. We have a Facebook page. You can go to d8summit.org, which is our webpage, to find out about those sorts of things. Connect into the community because we try to be out there among people. So if you go to conventions, you can ask if D8 Summit has a presence there, or you can speak to convention organizers and ask them about getting a presence there, because because when we know that people are interested in that sort of outreach for their guests, we're more than happy to provide it. If you want, you can follow me. I am at. You can follow me on. Well, I have a Bluesky presence mostly, which is the Healer DM, one word, DM like Dungeon Master. Um, you can follow me that way, or you can go to my website, thehealerdm.card with 2 R's.com. But I exist pretty organically in most spaces. If you see me at a convention, come up and say hi. I'd love to chat with you. If you if we have time, let's sit down and grab a bite to eat. Tell me the things that you're passionate about. I run games professionally online, so you can find that, or you can look up the projects that we have on DM's Guild. So there's some great projects I've worked on with some great people I'd like you to learn more about. And if you find some of those projects, you'll see other talented people's names there who deserve way more credit than I do.
Okay, so I want to announce that our next stream will be on Friday at 7 p.m. with none other than Luke Gygax.
Yes.
Really excited about that one.
Awesome.
Yeah, so everybody needs to tune in on that. We are giving away a badge to GaryCon 2026 during that stream. And I want to also thank everybody who is watching on the live stream for participating and for your excellent questions. It has been an enriching experience to interact with all of you. And Connor, I have not forgotten that the profits from the first 100 copies of Keshanar go to D8 Summit Charities.
Thank you.
That's happening. That's moving up. That time is coming.
This year we're committed to battling food insecurity. And I could go into it. I could go into it at length, but we'd like to send some grants out there to help fight that. We do it through small fundraising efforts. We're not a big charitable organization by any stretch of the imagination. We're small. I always like to say we're small, but well intentioned and mighty. Those charity dollars matter a lot. There's a donate link on d8summit.org where you can go there directly. If you want to come and play games with us at the D8 Summit Charity Convention, the weekend of April 25th through 27th, we got some really cool games going on at the Post House Ballroom in Dixon, Illinois. It's about an hour from Chicago, Madison, Rockford, Milwaukee, Quad Cities, Peoria. It's sort of nestled in the middle. Small town charm, and we totally turn that place nerdy for a weekend. It's a neat time. We have besides just having some great games, a lot of them authored by the people who are sitting at your table running the game for you. We got some great giveaways and everything. I did maybe score. This is a teaser. A couple bottles of the 50th anniversary D&D bourbon.
Ooh.
By the folks at Dragon's Milk.
Nice.
So they're going to be in the silent auction. I know that's going to draw a few people out there because those are incredibly limited.
Not bad. Man, I would be there, but I will be we are sponsoring we got invited to have a table at the American Research Center for Research in Egyptology RC conference in San Francisco, which is really cool. So there's this thing called archaeogaming, and we're it. And so we're going to have a chance to connect with a lot more passionate people about ancient Egypt and in Egyptologists, both Egyptian and American and otherwise, and deepen those connections so that we can kind of keep that whole thing moving. So, although if it wasn't for that, I would be at your conference.
No. I just think that's incredibly awesome. So get out there and talk about it. Get people interested and passionate about seeing their interest in the hobbies that we enjoy too. You can find it. That's cool. That's so cool.
All right, everybody, thank you for joining. Connor, thank you so much for coming, and it's great to see you.
It's great to see you too, even if it's this way.
You gotta
So
hang out.
so I think the next time I know for sure that we're going to be in the same space is at GameholeCon in October, which means that I'm going to need to sit at a Keshanar table, and bring back my "It's Keshan time" motto to slay some baddies and have some fun.
Yeah,
Um,
please do.
that would be, but even just to sit and chat, because great stories with great people. I mean, who doesn't like that?
Absolutely. Well, thanks so much. It's been a real pleasure, and appreciate you taking out of your time, time out of your day to do this, which I know is a difficult day. And you're a trooper, and I really appreciate it.
And